All right, everyone, let's get started. Before we kick off, let's do some introductions. As I said before, the chat is open. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and what you do and who you work for. We'd love to get to know you. And without further ado, let's meet the team. So I am your MC, or rather referee, for today. My job is to share the slides, keep our coaches on track, and to bring your questions in the chat to Grady and Keone and have them answer it. And then I'll go ahead and kick it over to you, Grady, to introduce yourself, and then we'll end with Keone, and then we'll get going.
Very good. Thanks, Autumn. Hi, all. I'm Grady, founder over here at Resi. I've been building websites and optimizing the digital presence of multifamily properties for the past 11 years or so. I've learned a thing or two along the way, but what makes this work so interesting is how it continues to evolve. And I'm excited to chat with you guys about some of those changes today. Keone.
Hey everyone, I'm Keone, the SEO specialist here at Resi. I'm super excited to jump into this playbook and give you guys some insights into what we've been researching and working on for the past month or two here.
I'll have to remember to unmute myself. All right, some housekeeping. So first and foremost, we developed a three-part SEO and GEO guide that really serves as a foundation to what we're going to be building on top of today. So we're not going to be reiterating those, but they are really great pieces of content. I encourage you to go check those out, read them through. They'll be very complementary to what we'll learn today. What we'll get today is you'll get a clear, actionable 5-step framework to build an SEO program that will allow you and your company and your properties to win in 2026 and beyond. This session is being recorded, and we'll send you the recording and early access to the full playbook. So that includes pieces and parts of the guide, what we learned today, and then some additional notes, checklists, and items that will really be your playbook for 2026. And then finally, as I said before, the chat is open. Go ahead and ask questions throughout. If you have curiosities, if you have anything specific to your property or portfolio or problem that you're experiencing, or you can save it for Q&A at the end. Anything that we're not able to get through during the webinar, we do have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. All right, let's get started. But let's get started with a poll. So tell us where you're at with your SEO and GEO strategy. We'll keep this up for just about 10 seconds more. Answer it quickly. We'll get a
Be
sense of,
honest.
go ahead.
Be honest.
Yeah, be honest.
It's okay. No one's judging here.
Oh, we don't see how you vote, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so the results are in. We have 24% of the group saying yes, and it's actively managed and measured, and that's fantastic. I hope that you guys are able to take away some bits and pieces today to elevate your strategy. And then about 70% of our group, or yeah, 76% says kind of or no strategy yet. So this is a really great opportunity for you to write notes, or rather not. We'll send you the recording, and you guys can build an excellent SEO strategy. All right, let's get started.
Yes, so first things first, let's dig a bit more about why SEO looks different now and how this is going to impact your 2026 strategies moving forward. As I'm sure quite a lot of you have noticed, multifamily has seen quite a couple of fluctuations in traffic about mid-time this year from the June core update to Google search system. A lot of the evidence and the research that we've done here on our side points to multifamily housing now being classified as YMYL, which stands for your money or your life. I've talked about it a bit more detail in some of our blogs, but for a quick synopsis, YMYL is a classification that Google gives to websites that could have a profound impact on their users' life. Similar to industries like finance and healthcare, since housing deeply affects a renter's safety, financial well-being, and even their health in some cases. So your sites are going to be under increased scrutiny and have to pass a higher bar to rank well in search. To help Google grade these YMYL sites, they use something called EAT, which stands for Experience, Expertise, Authoritativeness, and Trustworthiness. It's a core framework that Google uses to score your site's credibility, essentially, and it directly feeds back into YMYL. So if your site isn't meeting these checks, then your property could be penalized in the search engine results pages. It could be ghosted in generative search platforms, and the site could even be deemed untrustworthy. So building and maintaining your site with these factors in mind, you're going to be feeding into Google's knowledge graph, which is kind of the brain behind how Google works. It relates information across entities across the entire internet, essentially. It's a lot. But this brain has pretty much been the foundation for SEO and for search since 2012. And knowledge graph isn't going away. It's actually more important now than it ever has been before. It's also important to note that there actually isn't really a special toolkit for GEO. GEO is built on top of SEO, built on top of the knowledge graph. So it's using those reasoning skills to ingest and identify this data in the knowledge graph to find out what's going to be most relevant to your renter. And final point here for how it's going to be different, the renters' behaviors are changing. How they search, how they want to consume information, and the sources that they trust are changing. And I'm going to pass it along to Grady, who's going to dive a bit deeper into this new renter journey.
Absolutely. Thanks, Keone. Well, I don't know about you all, but I continue to find myself in Google typing full questions and then asking myself, is this even the right place to be asking this? Just last week, pretty sure I found myself typing, what activities should I be practicing with an 8.5 month old genius level baby? Um, Not just asking for baby activities. And renters are changing their search behaviors just like ours are. They're using longer and more specific queries in their apartment search, and they want the most relevant information quicker and delivered on a silver platter. So instead of asking for apartments near me, they're searching for apartments, Atlanta, Georgia, 2 bedrooms, pet friendly with a pool. And now they're also using generative search for conversational queries. They list their preferences in detail on a daily basis and ask for a full return of information. And while Google is adapting daily to these practices, sites like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude are delivering websites that meet that criteria also. Generative search features are also taking into account user behaviors, likes, dislikes, interests, on how to tailor responses. They're gathering a lot of information based on how freely we're sharing it today, and they can use that to create even better responses. So the job of any search engine or AI tool is to provide the best answer, not just a list of links anymore. And they use our information to create those answers. So when they're sharing preferred content and properties in the responses, they might now be highlighting dog parks, washing stations, and transparent policies if they've learned that you like pet related things. So for your property website to be delivered on that silver platter, you must show up. And to show up, you need to rank high. Your sites need to be machine readable, credible, and locally authoritative to do that with all the relevant information that a renter may be looking for. So no matter what the current state of your SE program, as we've got a broad spectrum that was shared already, there's always work to be done. So let's jump in. Tony, how to get started.
Yes, so before we actually do jump into the 5 steps to build up your SEO program, there's a little bit of pre-work that we have to do here. Auditing and mapping before you build will help ensure that you're creating a solid baseline that is going to be measurable and help you understand both the constraints and the opportunities that you have. First, you want to run your baselines. You can use tools like Google Search Console to gather baseline data for your click-through rates, impressions, and your average positions. Google Analytics is really helpful for tracking organic conversions and your landing pages. And with something like Google Business Profile, that helps you to track your impressions and review velocity for your local presence. Screaming Frog, PageSpeed Insights, and Ahrefs are also great tools that I'd highly recommend for crawl data and backlink. Secondly, you'll want to map your renter journey. Renter journeys could be a little bit messy and can be a bit unique for each renter, but there is a general path that each renter takes. So grab a digital mapping tool like Lucidchart and map out that renter journey. Map out the channels, the information a renter seeks, the touch points, and the tech at any given point in that journey. You'll be surprised at the gaps you find and where you can improve this journey, and we'll dive a bit deeper into this in step two. After you've determined where there is opportunity to improve your SEO program, you then need to start to understand the constraints that you have. Some website platforms limit your ability to truly harness optimized SEO. I won't call them out here, but feel free to drop it in the comments if you feel that pain too. I know I have. I've worked as property manager for 5 years. I've encountered it before. So work to identify what are your internal resource constraints. Could this be something an internal employee could be dedicated to, or is there a budget opportunity to invest in an SEO program with an agency partner? And what reporting needs to be established in order to accurately measure the progress that you're seeing? And are there any APIs or development that would need to be done to achieve this? These are all important considerations to keep in mind as we move forward. So let's go ahead and dig into step one of this SEO playbook. Firstly, you're going to want to build your entity and infrastructure through identity and ownership. This works to make it crystal clear to both Google and renters who you are and helps prove that you're a legitimate business as well. Name, address, and phone number, we call them NAP in the industry, is the foundation for identity in SEO. So ensuring this information matches across all of your touch points for the business is paramount, is incredibly important, as it helps Google to identify that all of these different accounts belong to the same company. So your external sources such as Zillow, apartments.com, your social media pages, and even your entry in your local chamber of commerce if you have one. It also helps to link your corporate site and any nearby sister properties that you might have, as that helps to strengthen that identity as well. Also, I would highly recommend to humanize the property with a Meet the Team page, as that's becoming more and more important and beneficial to multifamily as it becomes more competitive. Also, renters trust people, and algorithms reward sites that reflect that. A little pro tip here, using a centralized CMS like Resi allows you to easily update your Meet the Team page in about 30 seconds. I did time it, only takes about 30 seconds to update it. So next, Grady's going to tell us a bit more about the importance of transparency in your policies.
Oh boy, we could go pretty deep on this one and have an entire webinar or three on transparency in general and the changes that are happening in fee transparency. We're going to try to stick to how this affects your SEO today. So first, let's talk just generally. Transparency equals trust on the internet, both by you, your renter, and in SEO. Giving clarity into what exactly is needed to rent at your property and how that process looks is very welcoming to a renter. In many cases today, they're used to stepping into a mix of information, not knowing where to click, learning about fees at the last minute, not understanding if their pet can handle a property. It is a pretty difficult to go shopping for an apartment. If you haven't done it yourself in a while, I recommend you just go try it. It's not a pleasant process. Our job here is to try to make it easier today. And not only is that helpful to renters, but it's helpful to your ranking as well. So making sure that you have clear, accurate information everywhere on your website, make it so apparent and so readily available is just absolutely necessary. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are some pretty broad legislation requirements that are happening across the industry right now. We've seen many of them taking place in a number of states, and we have many more on the table for how we're going to be required in many cases to provide information. And that can come in the form of a simple disclaimer in some cases about your pricing and what it does or does not include. But much of this is looking like a complete shift and transformation in how pricing is calculated and displayed across all medias for your renters. Definitely pay attention to RETC and to some other groups that are pushing forward and staying on top of fee transparency legislation. It's going to continue to be a huge change over the coming year. This is not going to be the last you hear about it, I promise.
Perfect. So next is your Google business profile, especially its hygiene and its parity. I'm sure a lot of you know your Google business profile is typically the first touch point your renter has with you when they begin shortlisting properties. So it's very important that you make a great first impression here. And ways you could do that is to make sure that you have an active and routinely updated business profile that shows that you're responding to resident feedback and taking care to ensure that your floor plan pricings are accurate as well. Ensuring all of the touch points on your Google business profile, uh, such as your services, such as the questions and answers that you have as well, helps you to get the most impact from your local presence. A quick reminder as well to not forget about your UTM parameters for your Google Business Profile. This helps you to make sure that you're tracking these conversions accurately and allow you to attribute the traffic. Next, I'll pass it back on to Grady here to talk about website privacy and schema.
Oh, as a web designer, my favorite part. Everybody loves those pop-ups, right? But they are important. They do serve a purpose. So first we'll start off with, if you don't have SSL and you don't have HTTPS on all the time, that is an absolute must today. If you don't get that little lock icon in the part of your URL bar, you're instantly losing credibility and trust with the user. So let's start there with the basics. Then we'll talk about making sure that your privacy policy and cookie consent are super easy to find. I'm generally a proponent of a little bit more of a minimal approach to making it clear where they are. But if you want to go ahead and have the pop-ups or you don't have much choice with your system, nevertheless, you want to make sure that those policies are there and they're clear. Making sure to add a response pledge on your forums to set retro expectations for follow-up too. And then keep your lead forms minimal. Only name, email, phone, preferred move-in if needed. This helps to not require somebody to put in way too much information. That can also affect how they trust a site and what they're willing to be providing at any given point. Let's shift the conversation over to schema. This is a really important aspect of your SEO presence, as this is really how the robots, the indexing tools, learn about what's on your site. It's the easiest way to have structured data and to tell all the systems in a very common format what about your business. And that comes in your basic set provided by what Google is paying attention to, which is going to be your breadcrumbs, FAQs, image metadata, and then of course your local business. And as Keone mentioned, that's your name, address, phone number. But then we also want to look at the things that are going to pay most importance for multifamily properties, and that's going to be your local business, apartment complex, website, web page, breadcrumb list, FAQ page, reviews. All of those are additional ways to add to your schema that can be really, really helpful. This is a great place to plan for the future as well. Your schema is going to become continuously more important as a structured data source for all of the tools to gather information about your business and your property. It gives Google clear signals about who you are, what you offer, and how credible you are. Also, the more information that you can make available via schema, the better, because indexing tools take cues from the accuracy of this information. And with dynamic pricing, which many of you probably have, you should make sure that the platform that you're using is updating this information automatically as well. So this sets the foundation for private, secure, structured data for both renters and search engines. Now back to you, Keone.
We had a question, Keone, if we could go back talking about Google Business Profile. Melanie
Mhm.
Shepard asked, what is the best practice when choosing category for business type for multifamily? And I know that this is kind of a sticky or rough point because there's lots of implications depending on what business category you choose.
There are, I have found that the best recommendation that I can make is to just be as accurate as possible. I do know for Google Business Profile, there is a distinction between like an apartment complex business category and a student housing business category. So you want to make sure that you are going to be as accurate and represent yourself as accurately as possible there. Since if you are student housing, but your Google Business Profile says you're just an apartment complex, there's going to affect your local presence there and might reduce the quality of the leads coming in.
There are also some nuances that I'll interject there with how phone numbers get displayed, as well as with how they are requiring hours displayed, depending on what you select with your category. So we'll make sure that we include something about that in our follow-up playbook guide, so we have some specifics for you about what that decision means.
All right, let's keep
Yeah,
going.
there we
Thanks,
go.
guys.
Perfect. So we are back on to this renter journey here. As I mentioned earlier, that renter journey is changing. And one of the key changes is that the content you provide at each step of this journey provides context to the algorithms. So it's going to look different for every renter, but looking at the big picture, they're typically going to follow the same path. So this graphic provides a sprinkling of some content examples that are not only going to help your renter assess your property, but also structures content into data for SEO and GEO. First step here is the awareness stage. So this is where your content aimed at discoverability really shines. So establishing your property with key features lets you cast a wide net in search and keywords without going too off script. Next step here is research. This is where you really want to start bragging about yourself. Show off those amenities that you paid really good money for, and show off those expansive floor plans with 3D tours for the different unit types. This all works amazingly well during the research phase. After that, when once prospects have found a few properties that they like, this leads us to the comparison stage. So this is where you really need to begin differentiating yourself from your competitors. And a great way to do that is to begin to instill trust in the renter. Be open and be honest about your monthly fees, including policy explainers in your FAQs, and providing live pricing and availability information. Once the prospect has whittled their comparisons down to about 2 or 3 properties on their radar, this takes us into the shortlist stage. So the shortlist is the best time to begin highlighting the experience of actually living at your property and the expertise of your team as well. So highlighting resident reviews and a meet the team page are both vital here. They love the property, now they want to know if they're going to like you. Lastly, tours and applications. So you've seen the relationship that you've already built with your prospects so far. And this is where you need to allow your on-site team to really begin nurturing that relationship with them. As well, including an online tour scheduler and application helps a ton in reducing friction in this process. So this is a lot of talk about the content for your website. And one of the most important pieces in this new playbook are your FAQs. So I'm going to pass it back to Grady here to dive into how to optimize this to the fullest.
Absolutely. Making sure to have the right information displayed at the right time is so key. A great place to start, though, is to make sure you have a vault of FAQs that you're providing answers to. So make sure you're building at least 10 to 20 FAQs per property in truly natural renter-friendly language. Keep your answers short, to the point, clear, direct. And then another really helpful thing is to try to organize your FAQs by clusters. I recommend throwing as many as you can in there, but then provide a really easy way to navigate through them. So if you can categorize them by these are FAQs about pets, about the move-in process, about the application process, and tag them accordingly, that one helps organize your FAQs page really well, but that also can potentially allow you to place your answers more contextually throughout your website. So the FAQs page doesn't have to be the only place that you display your FAQs. Put them on your floor plans page to answer questions about rent pricing or fee transparency. Put them on your pet policy page to answer questions about pets. Having that really those contextual answers in place makes for a much more smooth renter journey. But this is truly look at this as an opportunity. This is an opportunity to queue yourself up to provide the answers you want renters and AI to know about. So use these FAQs strategically to implement keywords in your natural phrasing. So an example being like, what is nearby transportation on the neighborhood page? And then answer with a list of bus routes, train stations, commute times, and links. Each FAQ should follow a structure of a direct answer, supporting context, and related links. All of those are very helpful in the way that AI is looking to answer questions in their engines. Use lists and tables and how-tos to make that content easier to understand for renters in AI as well. And then a little pro tip is you're answering these FAQs. One, this is also a huge benefit to be including in your schema. And then two, these are the Q&As that you should be prompting into your Google Business profile. So make sure to be plopping them in there as well.
So when it comes to media, there's a lot more depth here that we're able to really take advantage of. My main recommendation, drop the stock of images on your website. Authentic content from photos to testimonials to virtual tours on your website for the community as well helps to build trust faster than any sort of awareness ad campaign could. On top of that, media is a key point for both renters and search algorithms to better understand your property. It's best to pay close attention to the file names of your photos specifically, as well as the alt text used to describe them, and to ensure that they're optimized in the proper web formats. For example, a photo of your pool with the file name photo28532.jpg doesn't tell the algorithms what that photo actually is.
No.
But if the photo is titled rooftop pools, that describes what the image is, included with the alt text and any sort of image metadata. A great pro tip that I would recommend here is to hire a local videographer to help stage a lifestyle shoot for the property. Even paying residents to be a part of that shoot as models helps provide a touch point to create a great experience for your residents and lets you use those photos and videos for years to come. So now that we have all of these amazing photos for your property and want to show them off on social media, of course, so Grady's going to dive into some helpful off-page SEO tips.
Hey, before we kick it over there, we have one question in the chat. Brooke
Mhm.
asked, how is AI with negatives? This is such a great question. We put breed restrictions and then show as a property that accepts those breeds because it keywords the breed, but not the no. So how would you go about resolving that?
That is actually a key issue with AI systems. They have a hard time understanding don'ts or no's or any sort of negative to it. So the best way I would approach that is to maintain the breed restrictions on your website, even if it is being ingested into those AI systems. Um, it's something that the AI systems themselves will have to update to kind of better understand those negatives. The other alternative would be to list out what breeds you do accept, which becomes a hassle very quickly with large breed lists.
Thanks. Let's go ahead. Grady, beyond the property website.
Certainly. And yeah, just one more little tool tip for the photo naming is there are some really great AI tools that will help you do that in bulk. So don't think that you need to go manually do that. There are some great tools that are very cost effective to go through, name your files, add metadata, and all sorts of things that will just are small little movements in your SEO. Yeah, let's move beyond the property website. And this has been such an interesting area lately. We've seen a couple of huge developments just recently. So one recent announcement is that Google is now indexing Instagram posts. Yes, that's right. So all of those captions that your team spent hours poring over now do have an even bigger impact than they once used to. So make sure that you are paying close attention to the keywords that you're using within your captions. And then another big thing just in this past week was ChatGPT's new announcement of their apps and their partnership with Zillow. And I'm even demoing that as a part of showing off their tool. But this is just another example of showing how important structured property data is for powering offsite SEO. So when we talked about the importance of NAP earlier and having the same data everywhere, make sure you're using the same keywords in your descriptions on Zillow and apartments.com and your social media posts and your website. They should all be reflective of each other. That's what's going to create consistency, and that consistency equals trust in the terms of these machines. And then we have a whole slew of additional places that you might be showing up on. Some you have control over, some you do not. But any of the ones that you are able to go participate in and add to, we recommend. So looking at the Pinterest boards and Reddits and other discussion places of the world, make sure you're putting answers up there if somebody's put something about your property, so that you have good, accurate information everywhere where possible. And then the biggest takeaway is that SEO is just not only on your website anymore. It continues to translate into many other areas of what the web is. Social media was really the web 2.0. And so I've always looked at social media as being a part of an SEO strategy, and it is now more than ever as well. And now we can dive deeper back into the website, talk about some technical SEO.
Yes. So thankfully, a lot of technical SEO with these changes hasn't changed much, but there is a renewed focus on a certain aspects here that I want to point out. When it comes to your site speed, your core web vitals are still a very important metric to track, including your largest contentful paint, the cumulative layout shift, as well as your interaction to first paint. There is a caveat here, though, that I want to point out. A website with a slightly lower core web vitals, but with a high quality content on their web page, is going to outrank a website with perfect core web vitals if their content is not up to par. So it's a balancing act between site speed and content. If there is a video that is going to work incredibly well on your website for conversions, but it slows down the website just a little bit, keep the video. The user is going to be the most important factor that we want to keep in mind here, is that user experience. In mentioning a user experience, not only do optimized meta descriptions, headings, and ARIA roles assist with SEO, they are essential for renters with disabilities. And search algorithms want to make sure that anyone can use your website, even those who are blind and use screen readers, or those with motor disabilities that require the use of switches or eye tracking systems. Another one I want to point out here is tracking and logging any sort of errors and having those resolved as quickly as possible. I recommend weekly site audits. I run mine every Monday morning at 7 a.m. And this is to help ensure that your links are healthy, track any anomalous user behavior that might be happening. And the main items that I'd recommend everyone to track are any 4XX errors, any redirect chains that you might have, as well as keeping a very close eye on server logs and crawl statistics. Tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush are great for routine monitoring. Next, I'm going to pass it on to Grady here, who's going to walk us through how to use your optimized site and these offsite touchpoints to help build your local authority.
Oh, yes, everybody's favorite topic, reviews. Um, this is a blanket statement. We already know online reputation is not a nice to have. It is a core SEO signal, not just something that renters are using to judge how you actually perform on site, but is how your tool is being indexed, how your website's being indexed. And these are the goals that you need to have in mind. Looking at the volume of your reviews, the recency, the velocity of them, and your overall rating. All of these are important factors for how well you're going to rank. This might be one of the top factors in how you rank. And I couldn't stress more the importance of pouring time and effort, energy, processes into your reviews. So make sure that you're training your on-site teams to ask reviews at every interaction. There are also some really great tools that can help to automate that with some pulse feedback systems that we can certainly recommend. Make sure you're responding to every review within 24 hours. Renters notice this, so does Google. Make sure to work in keyword-rich responses. Again, this is an opportunity to have content out there about your property. Every one of those is an opportunity to continue to solidify your messaging and your communication and using the right tone of the same tone of voice, but also those keywords and how you want to rank for them. Then republish those reviews. Use your website as a place to showcase where you're doing really well. And then one of the most important things I'll stress about reviews and reputation is don't look at this as just something that you have to deal with. This is a true business signal. Make these changes where you see them. People often just want to be heard and would love to see those changes. If you are able to implement those changes, go back and re-respond to those reviews, highlight them, and highlight the resident brought it up if they're ever open to that. Those are humongously beneficial in demonstrating trust and credibility online and really helping to show that you listen. And not only do renters see this, but so does Google, and they'll reward you for it. So definitely go through and use those automation tools wherever you can, because it's a lot to maintain. We all know this. I'll talk a little bit more about some other offsite SEO. Getting back into some of the old SEO items of backlinks and network signals. Are these still relevant today? 100%. Authority is a huge component of your SEO presence. And so you want to make sure that you are taking advantage of as many credible local sources as possible. So anytime you can be cited on those city pages, associations, .edu and .gov are really great high authority sites to have links to your website on. It's a great opportunity to use PR as well. Push stories on openings, sustainability initiatives, community partnerships. Anytime you can get a mention from a credible website, it helps your authority score. Leverage those community events. Ask for backlinks from partner sites when you sponsor or co-host something. These all strengthen your network signals. And then you can also make sure to take advantage of, if you have a portfolio, cross-link with your sister properties. This is a pretty straightforward and easy one, as well as back to your corporate site. Creating a little hub and spoke model of your own websites is a very simple way to get started by creating those with those backlinks. And then make sure you're keeping your breadcrumbs consistent across all properties so that those links are up at the top. They're really easy to find, and you have that backlinking everywhere that you possibly can. Then another unique idea is something we don't see too often in this industry, but you see in many other, particularly like SaaS products and other businesses online. When somebody wants to write an article about such and such business, they go to the Media Kit page to go get the logos and any other information. So try publishing a Media Kit page with logos, images, a fact sheet so that they get the language right and they're using the keywords on their site about your property that you want to be ranking for. And this can really also just help press to cite you correctly. And each of those backlinks and citation reinforces your legitimacy in Google's knowledge graph. Now let's jump into everybody's favorite new topic.
Yes, I was about to say, this is time to talk about the star of the show here, GEO. So while SEO is definitely a long-term strategy, typically around like 6 months to a year for a strategy to fully mature, GEO benefits from continuous improvements. So what I would highly recommend is to track one content variable at a time across multiple metrics, such as keywords, impressions, etc. And this helps you to identify which content is going to be most helpful for the renters and most beneficial in AI conversations. So this helps to ensure that your momentum is consistent. And it's very important to cycle through iterating a new variable, measuring its movement in AI systems like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google's AI overviews, and then validating this performance to inform your next month's cycle. And a great way to track this is to just incorporate GEO into your regular monthly reporting. Makes it part of your standard marketing reports that you have. And so now you have this data, how do you track it and find actionable insights? And this is where we now enter our favorite acronym, your KPIs and your dashboards. So it's important to track your KPIs, and having a dashboard that pulls data from all of your various sources is the perfect way to monitor how all of these different touch points influence each other. So for GEO, it's best to monitor an AI snapshot presence with a third-party tool like Ahrefs, as well as monitoring non-branded keyword growth and conversion rates in Google Search Console or GA4, especially comparing organic traffic against all non-organic traffic sources, such as direct, paid social, or your display ad traffic. With the increased scrutiny on multifamily due to YMYL, review velocity on GBP, or on the Google Business Profile, is important to monitor and ensure that it's maintained. I know Grady stressed it earlier, but I also can't stress enough the importance of building trust, especially as many renters are starting to grow a bit weary about the influence that AI might have on the information they receive. So using tools like Ahrefs, they do have built-in tools that help you to track performance with AI citations across all of the core AI services here that we have highlighted. So now that you have all this data, what do you do with it? Now you're going to take all this data and it gets fed into your quarterly refresh cycle. So every quarter is a really great time to check in on the heavy lifters that you have in your GEO strategy. And these content refreshes help to ensure that your information is timely and always up to date. It's a factor that both traditional search and AI responses take into consideration. And it's also beneficial to hold outreach campaigns with local businesses, the student housing associations, and any other related organizations to help build authority, just like those .edu and .gov domains as well. One method that I found works great is actually partnering with food trucks. Having a relationship with a food truck vendor allows you to not just provide a fun, engaging community event, such as Food Truck Fridays, which my community actually does as well. I love it. It also gives you a great moment for building relationships with renters to not just have time to brag about the experience of living at your property, but it also gives a touch point for that review generation and review campaigns. As well, the food truck business can have a link on their website back to your property, which helps you build that local authority very quickly.
All right. Okay, all that was a lot of information. We just went through really quick. How are we all feeling? Hmm? A little quick moment for some Zen. Let's close this thing out and go into some QA. So, what are the things to remember today? Basically, the SEO playbook has changed, but it hasn't really. GEO is built on what was always core SEO principles. So we don't have to, because we have all these new acronyms, it's not as complicated as it might seem. This is built on trust and the other things that develop authority in traditional SEO. So, what are some five steps that we can take? One, let's remember consistency and transparency is necessary in building entity and trust infrastructure. Two, offering the right information at the right time to make for a smooth renter journey is absolutely key. And then make sure to use every tool to your advantage. You have a ton of information about your property. Make it structured, organized, and easy to find. Then show that people like you and that you have friends. When people link to you, it's a signal of trust, just like getting advice from a friend. And lastly, GEO is not a shortcut. It's just simply built on great SEO foundations and something that you need to be doing in 2026. So winning in this next year means committing to these five steps. It's not about hacks. There are no shortcuts. It's about just simply disciplined execution. And this is a checklist of this is not just a checklist of what to do. This is something to weave into your culture and to your operations. And hopefully these playbooks that we are providing you will be helpful in that journey for you. And how to get started. Like I said, not every property has the same resources. So we can all approach this in some different ways, but definitely take the playbook and just begin applying step by step. Start small and do it yourself if you have the bandwidth, or bring your team together. Make sure to try to align marketing and operations and make SEO a part of your growth plan. This is an essential factor in revenue generation for your business, and it needs to be treated as such. Or you can also lean on a partner like us here at Resi or many others. Our platform does bake much of this into the foundation, and our team of multifamily marketing experts maximizes your SEO and GEO with proven ROI that Keone's a pretty fantastic expert in. And yes, we like to say that we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Right. Thanks, you guys. That was a lot of information. Definitely remember, you'll get access to this recording and the full playbook, which includes not only everything that we learned here and discussed, including some of the additional questions and answers that were in the chat, but some other things, some other meat you can put into your SEO and GEO strategy now and then for 2026. We've got about 15 minutes left. So we'd really love to dig into your questions if you have them. Curiosities, pain points, where to get started, where your barriers are, things like that. So please take to the chat and we'd love to answer what you got. I know that there's one question. Brooke asked, are hashtags still important to Instagram? And let's throw Facebook in there too. Let's answer both of those.
Yeah, I would highly recommend hashtags are still going to be very important, not just as a categorizing factor for Instagram, Facebook, and other social media as well, but that is still a word, a keyword present on your post that just feeds into your keyword reach that you have. So I would recommend don't overload it. I would highly recommend 5 to 8 keywords or hashtags max for any one post. Any more than that, and it starts to get very kind of jumbled and confusing about what the post actually is about.
And
Also
then,
use capital letters in your hashes and your hashtags. It's also an accessibility tool
mhm.
so that I can read it as separate words.
Eric asks, Eric Sharp, hi
Mm.
Eric, predictions on when geo will overtake or gain significant share of search.
The way I would approach that, since particularly how Google is approaching it with their AI overviews, is they are considering it part of their core search product. It's not a separate product or a separate generator for them. So I feel that AI is going to be ingested and incorporated into traditional search practices where we're going to kind of blend and lose that distinction between the two. I don't think it'll be a full, dump Google, dump traditional search, everything goes through AI. I think it'll be more of a merging of the two over time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I don't know that that's limited to a technical any kind of technical limitations. That's going to be how fast does our society adapt to it, and people change at their own rates. We're going to see this, like Keone said, really be more of a transformation in how search happens, rather than like one completely just being phased out. It'll be interesting, nevertheless.
And of course, too, depending on the audience of your property or your asset, that's going to completely change how renters and their online behavior dictates how you do your marketing. So perhaps if you're looking at like a 55 plus community, research says they're not using as much GEO as like student housing or conventional assets that attract a younger demographic. So keep that in mind too as you're approaching it. Definitely, I mean, you should always get started regardless of how with SEO and GEO, regardless of who your audience is, because it's only going to benefit you long term as those renter behaviors change. But just to note of like where you need to concentrate and put your resources in as well. Let's see. Okay,
Jessica
go
had a
ahead. Go
great
ahead, Grady.
question. Yeah, Jessica had a great question about AEO and GEO used interchangeably. Um, we've got a lot of acronyms being thrown around here. We didn't, there's always been transformations in how search happened. Do you remember when we had all the new voice tools making it into everybody's home and we all thought like voice search was going to be everything? Um, we have a similar approach here. We have new tools to interact with search engines and with information, and that information also transforming in how it's being given back to consumers. And so, yes, we are seeing much more. People don't want a list of links to go find the potential answer. We're getting the answer back in the best format. So that's the biggest change in what's really happening. How you become a part of that answer, as Keone really highlighted in a lot of detail, doesn't seem to have shifted too much. These are all still about the same core principles that have always applied to SEO.
Pretty, I have a perfect question for you from Stephanie Ortiz. She has a big pain point. So they use a corporate site with pages for each property. I'll assume that maybe those are property profile pages, single pages for each property. It seems everything is pushing to get away from that and do individual sites. A lot of these tips feel hard for sites built like ours.
Well, what a great question, and to tap into one of the age-old multifamily debates as to what is the best approach online for how you set up your portfolio. And I'm sorry to tell you, there is no easy answer here. I actually was just messaging Autumn a couple of weeks ago saying, like, I think my next blog post is going to be about that exact topic. How do you find the right corporate or portfolio web presence strategy to match your company? Everybody's should be different. Not everybody should look the same. And, Sometimes individual sites are better. Sometimes the corporate site is better. Corporate sites come oftentimes with a much greater authority because of their presence and their already business standing that is harder to develop with an individual property site. So I wouldn't shy away from the authority that can already come with what you have with your corporate site. You can definitely use that to your advantage. And there are some great opportunities to make your corporate site a fantastic renter experience, just as it would be on an individual property site.
And Stephanie, I know sometimes the complication depends on like not only logistically how you can set that up and what your technical infrastructure looks like and you being able to manage that, but also what your how your corporate companies organize. So are you primarily owner operator or are you primarily third party management? We've seen some differences generally depending on how your company operates. We're always here if you want to talk like website strategy. I mean, that's like our bread and butter. Please let us know. We'd be happy to go through some strategy with you on that. Okay, a few more questions here. Eric Bednars, hopefully I said that right. Eric says for a company with 100 plus communities, some being affordable housing, multifamily, etc., how would you go about SEO and GEO at this scale?
Yeah, for the way that I would approach it, hmm, thinking on it. Grady, do you have any insights? I'm putting together a thought in my head, thinking on it.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's not a short answer, first of all,
Yeah.
because it depends on how you're technically set up. If you were starting from scratch, I might have some different advice, but it also, like I was just mentioning to Stephanie's question, it's going to depend on your goals as a company. Are you a third-party management? Are you an ownership company? Are you trying to go brand forward with your communities and have them all live under one brand or several brands for affordable versus multifamily? And that's why I said, as I mentioned earlier, there isn't necessarily a single approach that works for all cases. You really need to adapt your strategy to your goals. And that's where I'd want to dive in deeper with you to understand like what are you trying to get to as a company, and you'd formulate your SEO and GEO strategies based on those goals.
I might offer some additional pointers there too. So, first, we talked about the pre work here before the first step, and that's where I think you can do the biggest amount of work right now and identify where
Yeah.
there are current gaps because those are like, you shouldn't necessarily be looking at step 4 or 5 until you have alt text and descriptions or your forward photos are in place and your redirect. So there's like some technical functionality. And if you have issues with your site or some major issues or gaps with your SEO, that's maybe where I would immediately start and then start to build on top of that. Another thing that I might recommend is where you can do SEO in bulk, like where the strategy is the same across your 100 plus entities or within certain segments, like starting with affordable or conventional, etc., and starting to like do some things in bulk before you really look at a honed in SEO strategy for property A, property B, property C.
Yeah.
Lastly, I'll just interject. I would definitely recommend at that scale finding a centralized marketing platform to manage it all in one place. It's going to allow you to tackle a lot of these challenges, and really take things at scale. And as Autumn was mentioning, finding those commonalities and common channels, and ways that you can really update those in a much more frequent basis in one place.
Yeah, 100
Yeah.
properties is huge. That's a tall task to do. I mean, even just managing all the normal stuff and property marketing, let alone now like this concept of geo and how we need to scale up our SEO to match that. Making sure you have like the technology and the resources internally on your team to support that as well.
Yeah, you guys pretty much covered everything that I was able to come up with. I was thinking through, I was like, oh, they covered it, we're good. But yeah, it was definitely to kind of sum it up, it really depends on how are your sites or site structured right now with these properties? What are the goals that you have? And then also, I guess most important, what are the opportunities and the constraints that you are operating within?
Mhm.
Once you're able to have that sort of information done with the pre-work, then it becomes much easier to be able to identify how would you be able to handle SEO and GEO at a large enough scale like that, or what sort of other possibilities might there be to be able to handle that level of scale.
Yeah, I think a consistent theme that we've been talking about, like that we always talk about at Resi, but what we wanted to make a point here today is SEO and GEO can be, especially GEO, can seem a little bit like an enigma. And I hope that we brought forth that it doesn't have to be an enigma. Like, do SEO really well and you're well set up for GEO, but don't bite off more than you can chew. And so do that pre work, understand where you can take smaller bites, smaller chunks, and start to really plan out your SEO program and go step by step. And that'll be a much more achievable way for you to have a successful SEO program than just being overwhelmed with all that you could possibly do. Okay, Grady asked, Keone, this is all changing a lot, seemingly almost daily. Where should one go to stay up to date on the best practices?
I have a few resources, but the biggest one that I would recommend for staying up to date on SEO and these sort of changes is the website searchengineland.com. It's pretty much just a news site entirely about SEO. So if you want to really dive into seeing what a lot of other experts are saying and these changes as they are happening, as well as other experts in this field conducting their own research, since SEO is a very obscure industry. Google doesn't like to tell us a lot about why they do what they do. It's an incredible resource for being able to stay up to date with everything happening within that industry.
Perfect.
May also recommend that you ask your SEO team, whether it's internal or external, to include an update on what's going on in your next QBR so you can stay up to date on what's changed.
All right. Thanks, guys. Any last minute questions here with the few minutes that we have left?
Look at us on time.
Look at us on time. Love it when that happens. Well, if there are any additional questions, please let us know. There's several ways to contact us. One of the biggies, you can go to getresi.com, submit a contact form. That goes right to me. It goes right to Grady. It goes right to a few other people on our team. And if we don't know the answer, we'll get you the right answer. And we can do some strategy sessions with you too. So I know there were some questions about website structure, domain structure. If you want SEO help, we're here for that as well. Grady, you want to end our call and then we can call it a day.
Yeah, well, just want to say thank you all for joining. More to come from Resi. We appreciate you showing up for this webinar and stay tuned for more to come.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.